When my son was 3, I lost my shit on him. I hadn't slept well in days because, for reasons still unbeknownst to me, he decided that he was going to wake us every morning at 3 a.m. to party, and it was finally starting to catch up with me. I had begged him to let me nap on the couch for a little, and he instead continued to call me every 5 minutes to help him with whatever he could find. In that moment, it felt like he was trying to kill me via sleep deprivation, and I was slowly starting to feel like he was succeeding. So on time number whatever it was, I finally lost it. I screamed at him, and I mean, I screamed at him. I asked him why he was so selfish. I snatched a toy from him and told him I was taking it as punishment. And he sat the whole time with his eyes wide, wondering who the monster in front of him was and where the hell his mother had gone. It took me 3 steps to realize that I'd fucked up royally, and I felt terrible about it. I apologized, but I felt horribly guilty for days. And it wasn't until I shared the story with Niam's Instagram audience that I realized I wasn't anywhere near alone. Parents everywhere lose their shit with their kids daily, and most of us spiral into shame about it. We wish we could have been more patient. We feel like failures. We focus exclusively, almost, on how to make ourselves better. As my guest today will tell you, though, we're missing the point. The problem isn't that we aren't enough or that we don't care enough about our children. It's that we're often forgetting to care for ourselves. I'm Ariana Bradford, and this is the Niam Project Podcast. As I've mentioned, I'm Ariana, and this is the Niam Project Podcast, and welcome to the year 2020 and Season 2. I'm super excited to introduce you to some amazing guests, some awesome stories, and more of the sweary, sarcastic, honest podcast that you've come to love. I'm thrilled to have you back. And today, you're listening to Episode 1, Your Shit. Stop Losing It. You're in for a treat today, actually, because I had the privilege of speaking with the awesome Carla Naumburg, clinical social worker and author of How to Stop Losing Your Shit with Your Kids. I was lucky enough to get to read this book, and let me tell you people, it speaks to me. It's practical, it's realistic, and it's straightforward. And there isn't a thing in this book that we can't do or mold to fit our lives regardless of where we're coming from. And it's understandable once you meet Carla. This book is a look into who Carla is. And if you're looking for a bit of a preview, I'll shut up now and let her introduce herself.
Am I actually saying my name or are you saying my name? Wait, are we recording for real or you sounded so casual? It's like, oh, wait. There's a recording button. We are in fact recording for real.
See,
hello, listeners.
That's why I was like, no, we edit. I edit. It's good.
Okay, sorry. Let's start again. I'm with you.
And you can totally start with I'm Carla if you want to, or you can just hop right into who you are.
Oh my God. I've been on vacation for too long and I don't know what I'm doing.
No worries. Oh, God,
okay. All right. Okay. Sorry. Shit. Okay. You could just start with a recording of me saying shit. There you go.
Honestly, this whole thing was so funny. But even anyway, I'm gonna let you know. But
you totally should.
I will. I'll be like, she didn't know I was recording, y'all. Anyway.
God. Okay.
Whenever you're ready. Yeah.
So I'm a clinical social worker. I'm a writer and a mom of 2 daughters, ages 9.5 and 11. And right now I live just outside of Boston, but I actually grew up in the West in New Mexico and California. And let's see about this book. Well, I'm always looking to write another book because it's my favorite thing to do. And the idea for this specific book, the actual specific idea came one weekend when my in-laws delightfully took my children away for the weekend and hung out with them, and my husband and I were out hiking, and we were talking about something, and all of a sudden I was like, I know what my next book is. It's called How to Stop Losing Your Shit with Your Kids. And because amazing things happen when you get some space from your children. Your brain kind of starts working again. And so then I had the title, and then I had to figure out the book. But the good news is, at that point, I'd spent almost a decade working on this issue, both personally and professionally. So I had a lot of fodder and research and personal experience and professional experience. But that's where the book came from. This has been sort of my, we're recording this right at the end of a decade, right? At the end of 2019. Right.
Yeah.
And my first daughter was born in 2008. My second daughter was born in 2010. And I have been working on this very issue for basically this entire decade.
It's kind of a hard process. And like, one of the things that I love about this book is that you're even honest about the fact that it's not something that you will ever completely overcome, because I think in your words, you say kids are button pushers. They're always going to find new buttons, and you're always going to have issues where you might lose your shit with your kids. So this isn't telling you to never lose your shit with your kids. This is telling you how to accept that it's going to happen and how to overcome that. Am I right on that?
Absolutely. Yes. And look, I just came back from holiday time with my extended family, and people were still pushing each other's buttons as adults, kids pushing parents' buttons in ways that they have for decades. So yes, this is an ongoing process, right? And our children's fingers will always be the right size for our buttons for as long as we're all alive, which hopefully will be a very long time, God willing. And so, yes, this book is about how to take care of ourselves and how to make choices that will make our buttons smaller and dimmer and less sensitive and less pushable, so that when our kids come along with their fingers out ready to push, which they do for a million reasons. They do it because they want and need attention, because they're tired or hungry or anxious or scared or confused or having big feelings, or they're bored or whatever. And our buttons, can be, sometimes my buttons are so bright and sensitive. My kids just walk in the room and I'm like, get out. Don't even look, I can't handle it. And so this is really about acknowledging that this is an ongoing dynamic, and that if we're thoughtful and intentional about it, we can really decrease the extent to which we lose it with our kids, the frequency, and we can make it less intense. So yes, I absolutely still go a little bonkers with my kids. We're in the middle of, winter vacation right now. I'm home with them. I've definitely bitten their heads off a few times. But I will tell you, it happens way, way, way less often than it used to. When it does happen, I can sort of rein myself in a whole lot more quickly, and I can repair the relationship, and we can get on with our day a lot faster. So there's a lot in here that's helpful, but I'm not the Dalai Mama over here. Like, I'm not completely, yes, my child, calm, happy all the time. And you don't have to be. That's not that's not necessary.
That would be boring. That would, what's the point? Parenting is not about being calm all the time. It's kind of about learning how to live with people who drive you nuts. I think both on our end and on theirs, because I'm sure we get on their nerves too. That's the whole point.
Oh yeah. And look, I want my kids to learn that being in a healthy, loving relationship doesn't mean that you can never show strong emotions and that you can never have unpleasant emotions. I love my husband. We've been married for 16 years. And there are times when I get so angry at him and he gets so angry at me, and that's okay. Like, it's not a threat to our marriage. It's not a threat to our relationship. It's just what happens when you spend a lot of time with people. And I want my kids to know that having strong, unpleasant emotions isn't wrong and it isn't bad. It's sort of what we do with them. And part of teaching them that is modeling it myself. And it's hard, but I'm working on it and it's getting better.
So get to the nitty gritty, Ariana, you say. How do I stop losing my shit with my kids? Well, firstly, I can't tell you all of that because you have to read the book. And secondly, that's too much to cover in just one episode. I will allay your fears, though, in saying that the answer is both simple and not, and that it has a lot to do with getting to know yourself and the things you need. It's as easy as paying attention to your burps and farts. So one of the things that I really appreciated about your book is that it kind of pushes a different narrative, like you said. Like, it's totally completely normal in the mother-child or parent-child relationship to have moments where you're like, I'm going to snap. I'm going to snap on you because you're being annoying and I need you to leave and stop looking at me or breathing on me or doing much of
They
anything.
totally breathe on you. It's gross.
They breathe on you all the time and sneeze in your eye.
I just did a breathe. For all your listeners out there who were like, what does that sound? That was me breathing. That was me doing a dramatic reenactment of what it's like when my children get in my face and breathe on me and sneeze in my face. They totally.
Well, see, that's what the breathe sounds like. That's a child breathe, right there in your face, just like a very deep, like, what are you doing? Can I have some?
Oh yeah. Whatever you have, whatever you're doing, I want some of it now.
Unless it's work, then you do all that by yourself.
But I will distract the hell out of you while you're trying to do it.
Yes, and then you won't get it done, and then you'll be even more stressed out, and then it'll be a nice big shiny button.
Which they will push.
Which actually feeds which actually feeds a little bit more into let's talk about burps and farts.
Oh God.
And
yes.
So for those of you listening, burps and farts do not mean what you think they mean. They make me giggle all throughout the book because I am deep down inside a small child and I love anything that has to do with bodily functions. But Carla, why don't you go into what burps and farts are and how they kind of help us stop losing our shit?
Yeah, so these are acronyms, and the reason I came up with them is because I am also, I also have the humor of an 8-year-old child, so there's that. But also because I, part of my goal in this book is to try to remind parents that we don't have to take all this so seriously, that we can laugh at ourselves and we can joke about this, even though it can be really hard and painful. But we don't have to be quite so serious and stodgy about it. So one of the things I wanted to do in the book was get clear with parents on what I'm talking about when I talk about like a parental explosion or meltdown, what I mean when I say losing our shit. Because look, if you have asked your kids 87 times to put on their shoes in the morning, just like you do every single morning in time you leave the house, not that I'm speaking from personal experience, and the child does not put on their shoes and then eventually you snap at them, I actually don't consider that a shit loss so much. Like, that's predictable. The kid knows it's coming. Maybe there's more effective ways to handle this, but whatever. It's just life. Like, put on your damn shoes. But there are different situations and different characteristics that I'm thinking about when I talk about losing our shit with our kids. And so I created this acronym FART to help us remember. The first one is that, it's all about feelings. And it generally comes from our explosions come from this place of these big feelings we're dealing with. And they may or may not have anything to do with our child, right? Maybe we just came home from a long, really stressful day at work. Maybe we're worried about how we're going to pay the rent or mortgage this month. Maybe we're dealing with a situation with our parents or in-laws and their health that's stressing them out. Maybe our own health. Maybe somebody we love or know just got a difficult diagnosis. Or maybe it's even that like some other parent on the playground made some snarky comment at you and you're like, what the hell was that? But there are feelings, right, inside of us. So, it's not a rational reaction, a thought out one. I mean, most of us don't walk in the house and think, today's a good day to lose my shit with my kids. I think I'll go ahead and do that. And if you are thinking that, that's maybe a different issue that you might want to talk to somebody about.
It's not going to be fixable by this book. No.
Right. And so it's feelings. So FART, F is for feelings, A is for automatic. It really is A and R for automatic and reactive. So when we lose it, it tends to be this sort of very quick, reactive, automatic thing that just happens. And it has a lot to do with sort of our nervous system. And that's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about the buttons. I'm talking about our nervous system. And when we're just overloaded, overwhelmed, and on some level we perceive our children and their button pushing as kind of a threat, and we explode back at them. And so I don't want parents to think that this is a matter of willpower, that this is something that you should just be able to decide, I'm not going to lose my temper with my children and then not do it, right? Mm-hmm. That's like trying to decide you're not going to sneeze. It doesn't work, right? Because it really is this automatic reaction. And then the T is for toxic. And what I mean by this is that something about our reaction is disproportionate, confusing, inconsistent, kind of feels out of control and unpredictable and is scary to the child. And what happens in that moment is that, like, let's say your kid spills their milk and you just freaking explode at them. And maybe it's because when you were a child, your parents exploded at you and now that's what your body does. But instead of the child thinking, maybe mom or dad is stressed out today because it's a painful anniversary or a difficult holiday, they're probably going to think, oh, I did something really wrong and I deserve to be yelled at in this very explosive way. I need to be a better kid.
Right.
And that becomes a very difficult dynamic if that happens over and over again in an ongoing way, because what happens later in life, and I don't want to freak parents out, I'm not saying this is definitely going to happen. I'm saying in sort of the most intense situations, what happens is people end up tolerating really bad behavior from other people because they think it's their fault.
Right.
And so it really is. So those are the kind of features of an explosion that I want parents to think about. It's about your feelings. It's automatic, reactive, and toxic.
Can I also just point out that you talked about explosions right after you were talking about farts?
Did not realize that, but now I'm kind of feeling super proud of myself for pulling that off.
I was about to say, was that on purpose? Because that was like poetry.
No, but I'm kind of just feeling like this book is the gift that just keeps on giving.
It really is.
That's where I'm going with that.
I'm impressed. Sorry.
And I hope your listeners are appreciating me not singing the diarrhea song right now, because I know it and I could sing it and I'm not.
We're all thinking it right now, though.
Yeah.
We all are.
So be grateful, people. Be appreciative. Gratitude is a powerful force for good. You should feel grateful right now.
Okay. Oh, okay. Right. So burps, we were talking
burps. Yes. Which, by the way, I hope you all, like, somehow when I had little girls, I thought I was not going to live in a world of bodily functions. Wrong. I don't know why I thought that, because whatever. So anyways, clearly these were on my mind when I was writing the book. Okay. So the idea in the book is that when we deal with all of these stressors in life, and I've got an enormous, like, multi-page list of potential triggers, as I call them, at the end of the book. The triggers are anything that make us more likely to lose our shit with our kids. And they do this by making our buttons, our nervous system, on edge, bright, sensitive, super pushable. And so we have sort of two options for how we're going to deal with triggers. One is, if it's a trigger you can get out of your life, like you can just get rid of it, you should do that. So if you know that loud noise on your commute every day on the subway is a trigger for you, get some noise canceling headphones. Like, yay, do that. If you're in pain and you can go to physical therapy and deal with the pain, you should do that, because pain is a trigger, right? But for many of the triggers in our lives, we can't, like, they're going to be there no matter what, right? So unless you suddenly win the lottery, for many of us, finances and worry about money are a major trigger. You know, if you've got family members who are challenging, unless you're prepared to cut off all contact with them, they're going to be a trigger. You know, work is a trigger for most of us, because even if you have a job you love, there is no such thing as a perfect job, right? Nope. And then things happen in life that are unpredictable. We get a flat tire, somebody rear ends us, you know, we get a call from the principal that the kid fell and broke a tooth on the playground, like whatever. Triggers happen constantly. So if we can't get them out of our life, which we, you know, unless you want to put yourself in a bubble and never interact with the world, which I have totally tried to do and I can't figure out how to do it, you have to sort of find ways to take care of yourself, to, like, sort of calm yourself down and take yourself out of that triggered space. And the reality is that most of us walk through our daily lives triggered most of the time, whether or not we're parents, whether or not we lose it with our kids. Like, for many of us, you know, anybody, for example, who has turned on the news in, say, the past 5 minutes or the past year will be triggered by it, because we are in a time of great, you know, really, really
unrest.
Shitty news, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Great unrest around the world. Okay. So what are we going to do? We're going to do our burps, which, look, I am so freaking proud of this acronym because it just works so beautifully.
It's an amazing acronym.
Right?
Really, I love it.
Burps,
I really do.
I did a little happy dance when I figured it out. Burps stands for button reduction practices. So these are the ongoing practices that we need to do in our lives to take care of our buttons, to make them smaller and dimmer and less pushable. So look, some of these are things that the world calls self-care. I kind of hate that phrase. I don't know why. It makes me very twitchy. So listeners can also think of them as shit you have to do if you don't want to lose your shit with your kids. It's that simple. And so some of these, you know, I'm going to say, and everyone's going to be like, yeah, hun, working on it, or not working on it. Don't talk to me. Either one is fine. Look, sleep. Sleep is huge. It is just not possible to parent well when you are chronically exhausted, for so many reasons. And so if you haven't had a child who's, if you have a child who hasn't slept since the Obama administration, this is going to be a problem, right?
Exactly.
Like, you're going to be exhausted. And so if you can't get more sleep, and I have a bunch of ideas in the book for how to do this, then all you can do is have a whole lot of compassion for yourself and cut yourself a whole lot of slack and acknowledge that, the analogy I make is that if you're trying to function without sleep, it's like trying to drive a car with a flat tire, right? You can still probably get to where you're going, but the ride is going to be a whole lot slower, more painful, more difficult, and you might break something else along the way. Right. So, sleep is sort of non-negotiable. Having support in parenting. If you are trying to parent alone or with limited support, it's going to be harder. You are going to be more triggered. And I, outline sort of all the reasons why this is true. And you're going to lose it more with your kids. And so I go through really in great detail in the book what kind of support we all need and how to get more of it, because it is simply not possible to parent alone and do it well and even like keep your sanity at all. So sleep, support, self-compassion, I talk about a whole lot. Many parents, we really beat ourselves up about our mistakes. And I remember the first time that I ever thought to myself, I'm a good mother. And it was 5 years into motherhood. And the thought just popped into my brain because I've been studying mindfulness and self-compassion. The thought pops into my brain, I'm a good mother. And it was so startling that I dropped the knife, that I was cutting cucumbers and I dropped the knife. I was fine. But I was like, oh my, and so I went 5 years of parenting without once thinking that maybe I was doing a good job.
Without telling yourself that.
Yeah. I was like beating myself up, saying shit to myself that I would never say to another person. And that just makes parenting harder and less pleasant, and it triggers us.
And you brought that up in the book, just wanted to say, and I loved that concept because I found that it's helped before, where you're kind of like, if you wouldn't say it to someone else, don't say it to yourself.
That's right.
Which is extremely important, I think, because we are often taught to be much nicer to other people than we are to ourselves. And
especially as women.
Mm-hmm, very much so. Mothers especially, because we are told societally that we are supposed to be the ones that have all the answers, even when we didn't have all the answers before we had kids. And so when we don't have all the answers, we suck. And I just thought that was a super smart thing to say, because I don't think that a lot of us think of it that way. We think that, our brain is a part of us, and therefore it's okay for us to say these things to each other. But it's kind of like, if you distance yourself from your brain, it makes it more like, why am I treating myself so crappy? Why am I talking to myself like I'm such a shit stain? I should be a lot nicer to myself.
That's right.
Yeah. So I really loved that concept. I just wanted to put that out there. I thought that was awesome.
Yeah, and look,
one other thing that we need to stop doing. We need to quit worrying about whether or not we're, quote, bad parents, end quote. For one, the things we often assume are signs of bad parenting are usually so small and inconsequential that the chances of them ruining our parenting career, as it were, are almost nil. For another, as Carla points out, we're all imperfect, but we all care, which means that there is no such thing as a bad parent.
Look, there is no place in the motherhood conversation, the sort of popular cultural conversation, for this kind of self-compassion and self-care. Basically, you can either publicly acknowledge that, like, you care deeply about parenting and you're working so hard to be better at it. Right. The implication being that you're not good enough. Or you can be one of those parents who's like, haha, I don't give a fuck, I'm a shitty parent, as a joke, right? You can joke about how much you don't care and you feed your kids sugar cereal, which, by the way, is like, whatever, it's fine. Why are we beating ourselves up about that?
I eat it too. Yeah.
That's right. Captain Crunch is my favorite. Okay.
Oh, yes.
It got me through college. So, but the question is, where's the room for the parent who's like, I'm not perfect. I care about some things a whole lot. I don't care about other things, but I'm actually a good parent. Like, I don't know where that conversation is happening. So I'm trying to change it. So, self-compassion isn't just an idea. It's a real practice. And before you start practicing self-compassion, like the first time I started trying to say things to myself, like, it's okay, parenting is hard, we all make mistakes sometimes, I'm just having a bad day, it doesn't make me a bad mother. The first time I tried to say that, I was like, what am I what am I supposed to say? Like, it was literally like learning a new language, because this wasn't a language anybody had ever spoken to me. And what would happen is I would lose it with my kids. And then I would think, I'm a shitty mother. I'm screwing them up. No other mother yells at their children the way I do.
Yep.
And then I'd go into the kitchen and look for chocolate. Like, really, that is what I would do.
I get it.
Like 100%. And now my automatic reaction after years of practice is, wow, this parenting thing is hard. It's hard for everyone. It's okay if I make mistakes. I just need to take a moment and like take a few deep breaths, like calm myself down, maybe have a little chocolate. Let's not kid ourselves. I don't give up on the chocolate.
Why would you?
Right. And so, but parenting is so much easier and more enjoyable and less stressful when I am not like really beating myself up, which I do a whole lot less now, but it was a practice. It was like a thing I had to intentionally work on and get better at.
I was about to say that had to be pretty freeing to feel less and less like you were, constantly under your own eye or under your own thumb, so to speak.
Absolutely. And look, as I say in the book, and this is such an important point, is I don't think there is such a thing as a bad parent. I don't think there's a bad mother, and I don't think there's a bad father. And whenever I say this to people, they're like, excuse me, have you like, think about X, Y, or Z? And they trot out some news story. And I'm like, look, there are parents that make really bad choices. Mm-hmm. I have made some bad choices. There are some parents that have made way worse choices. As a clinical social worker, I've seen a lot of it. And what I can say is, let's not call anybody a bad parent, because that's like handing someone a map that just says you're lost.
Yep.
Great. Thanks a lot for that. Okay. So like, I might as well just sit here and feel shitty and lost. Mm-hmm. So what I think about is there are parents who don't have the right information, support, and resources to parent the way they want to. So how can we help those parents get the right information, support, and resources? And that's what I was trying to take a bite out of with this book.
And you did an amazing job of it, if I do say so myself. You're welcome.
You just like the acronyms.
I do. They are quite fun. If I may, the next time that you do one of these books, I challenge you to come up with a way to make diarrhea one of them for me.
Oh my God.
That's a lot of letters, but I'm sure you can figure something out. Make it a sentence.
Wow. I kind of want to just make it for you anyway. If I make it for you, I get to come back to the podcast so we can talk about it.
Oh, yes. Yes, you do. And we'll be like, this is all we're going to talk about for the next 30 minutes is this very long acronym. There were a lot of things in this book that I found to be enlightening, but one of the biggest was the concept of gratitude. Not necessarily turning around and trying to be thankful for things that no one in their right minds would be thankful for, but the things that we truly do have to appreciate. So one of the other things that I thought you brought up that I kind of was hoping you could go a little bit more into was gratitude, and how that kind of helped turn the mindset around some so that it also made you a lot less triggerable, if that's a word. So can you go a little bit more into that?
Yeah. So when I first heard talk about gratitude, and look, I'm a clinical social worker, so I'm all about like feelings and self-care and yeah. When people were like, gratitude is so powerful, I was like, barf, don't even talk to me about that. I don't want to hear about it like that. Like, I'm not going to sit here and, join some drum circle. And I don't know. I had all these terrible drink tea. I don't like tea. And I feel like people who do gratitude drink tea. I just want to drink coffee. But, I was studying mindfulness and practicing it, and gratitude is a big part of it. And so it was kind of on my mind, right? As I'm actively rejecting it and being super judgmental in an unhelpful way. And so one morning I was down making breakfast for my lunches for my kids. And I hate making lunches. I hate it. I find it both like boring and irritating. And it's like this chore that I'm like, this sucks. And I grump my way through every lunch making session. And all of a sudden I'm just standing there. I remember I was at the sink washing strawberries, and I was like, I am so lucky. And where did this thought come from? I do not know. Probably because I've been stumbling around in the gratitude literature, judging it all. But, and all of a sudden, like, I had this overwhelming flood of things to be lucky about. Like, I live in a day and age where refrigerators exist, where those little ice packs, reusable ice packs exist, where these awesome, like, insulated lunch boxes. I grew up with the brown paper bags and the, like, disgusting, like, too warm peanut butter sandwich, right?
I remember that, yeah.
So, like, this amazing technology. I am fortunate that my husband and I can afford a home with a roof over our heads, where we can have this refrigerator. We live near a grocery store that has fresh food that I can afford to buy for my children.
Mm-hmm.
I have like a healthy body. I can literally walk down the stairs, and like I'm physically able to make these lunches. And my daughters have healthy bodies, and they are physically able to consume these lunches. And as any parent with a child who has any kind of feeding or eating or chronic illness issue knows, like that's not nothing.
Mm-mm.
Like I am so grateful for the people who break their backs picking this fruit. And I mean, we live in a world with peanut butter. That is like the greatest invention. So I just all of a sudden had this like moment where I was like, I am so lucky to live in a time and a place with the resources and support that I have to be able to make this lunch for my child.
Mm-hmm.
And look, I'm not going to tell you that I now love making lunches. I would still happily, like, if you want to come to my house, I'd be like, come on over, babe, let's do this. You can make the lunches. Also, like, I'm not saying I want to do this and I wake up with a spring in my step about lunches every day. But what I am saying is it no longer feels like such a chore. Mm-hmm. And every time it does, I start thinking about how fortunate I am to be able to make lunches for my kids. And so I find, and I'm less triggered, right? Because when you're grumpy, you're triggered. Right. And so gratitude helps me be less triggered, less likely to lose it with my daughters when they come downstairs and complain about the lunch. Also, they love it when I talk to them about gratitude. They love that. They really respond well. They're like, you're right, mommy. We should be, that works.
Let's turn this TV off and let's just talk about gratitude.
Let's just be grateful. Let's just be grateful.
Let's just be grateful for this conversation.
They really enjoy that. And so I find that in most situations, gratitude really does help me feel less triggered, less cranky, less grumpy when I can find something to be grateful for. And there are moments where I'm so in the shit of my own pissed off brain that all I can say is, well, I'm breathing. We're all breathing. And then when you phrase it that way and you think about one of your kids not breathing, all of a sudden you have so much to be grateful for, right? Mm-hmm. So gratitude has become a regular practice for me in sort of just my daily life. Like I'll frequently just look at my husband and be like, we're so lucky we have a house to live in. I'm so grateful to have a roof over our heads. So it's a game changer for me.
When you first started focusing on the whole gratitude thing, did you find that there was anything that was more helpful in making that become a more regular practice? Or was that just something that you kind of felt you stumbled into eventually?
So I sort of had my big moment at the kitchen sink, and then it just became a thing for me, like every day. Because that moment was it was such a game changer. Like it blew my mind in such a major way that it was like my neurons got rewired all of a sudden. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but there's good data to support that, an ongoing gratitude practice sort of lowers rates of depression and anxiety, increases happiness, blah, blah, blah. So many people do like to keep some kind of gratitude journal where either in the mornings or in the evenings, you like write down 3 things. And lots of people will do a gratitude practice, maybe at family meals or at bedtimes, like let's say one thing we're grateful for. So there's a lot of ways to incorporate gratitude into your daily life. If you are a person who prays or anything like that, I mean, a lot of prayers are about saying thank you for what we have.
Exactly.
So there's a lot of ways to do it. What I would encourage parents to think about is what can you fit into what you already do? So if you're already a person who has a paper planner and you sit down with it every day and plan your day, then make a little space in it to write down something you're grateful for. Or if you already have a family dinner every Sunday night or whatever, can you incorporate that? Or, find a way to fit it into your daily life that already works for you.
Also, start listening to yourself. Start paying attention to the things that lower your anxiety and your discomfort. Whatever those things may be, other than like murder or something, do them. Carla gives us an amazing example using herself. And as a bonus, she even shares that her family is starting to pick up on mom's needs when she herself may not even be aware of them yet.
I know that if I don't move my body every day, I am crankier and more anxious. And my anxiety definitely like shoots up when I don't get exercise. So I talk about this with my kids, and they'll say to me, hey, mommy, you seem really cranky. Have you exercised today? And after I get over my initial impulse to kick them in the teeth, I will smile and nod and say, yes, you're right. I need some exercise. And, with my daughters, I will say to them when we're home on the weekends or on the break, how are we going to move our bodies today? I'll take you to the pool at the gym. We can go for a walk. We can do a yoga video downstairs in the basement together. Like, what do you want to do? But we need to move our bodies. And so I try to avoid lecturing them on like the importance of exercise, but we figure out a way to get exercise together. So I would say how I'm sort of teaching them about the stuff in the book is by doing the best I can to live it with them. Like, we're super uptight about sleep in our house. And so, 8:15 and my 11-year-old's in bed. I'm like, is she 11? Is she really? Shit, she's really 11. I just had that moment. Yeah.
Surprise.
So 8:15. And for lots of 11-year-olds, that would be a very early bedtime. But through trial and error, I've learned that's what she needs.
I mean, when she gets to be about our age, she's probably going to want to go to bed at 8:15 anyway. I love going to bed at 8:15.
I love going to bed. You know what? You know how you ever get in that place where you're so tired, and you need to go to bed, but you're like on the couch and you're too tired to get up?
Yes, I do. And so I'm like, I think I'll just stay here and fall asleep.
You know what I do? I say to myself, Carla, the sooner you get in bed, the sooner you can wake up and drink coffee. And that gets me in bed because I love coffee so much. And I can't have it at night because it keeps me awake. So then I get myself in bed because I'm like, the sooner I fall asleep, the sooner I'm going to wake up and have coffee.
It's like Christmas every morning for you.
Absolutely.
More than anything, Carla wants to be sure that you know that this one thing is important if you want to eventually reach that promised land of losing your shit with your kids less.
Self-compassion. If you are a parent who started listening to this episode because you're losing your shit with your kids and you want to do it less, the most powerful thing you can do is go easy on yourself. And remember that parenting is hard. Just because it's hard doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. Beating yourself up isn't going to help. So to the extent that you can cut yourself some slack and spend time with people who are supportive and kind and compassionate to you, that is going to make you a more patient, kinder parent, and it's going to make parenting easier and more fun. So please, whatever happens, try not to beat yourself up. This parenting thing is hard, and it's hard for all of us, and that's okay. I mean, it doesn't feel great, but it's okay.
Honestly, I can't suggest this book enough. Any parent who has struggled with balancing their feelings and their parenting will find sympathy and wonderful suggestions in it. Honestly, I wouldn't just say this about anything, but I think this should be a part of any loving parent's library. So, that would be all of you. If you want to get a copy or keep up with Carla, you can visit her website at carlanomberg.com or follow her on Instagram. Those links will also be in the show notes. And if you're more of an audiobook person, the audiobook will be out soon, and you can find out when it releases by signing up for Carla's newsletter and or following her Instagram. The Niam Project podcast is written and produced by me, Ariana Bradford. If you'd like to find out more about us, you can check out our website at weareniam.com, or you can follow us on social media under the Niam Project. Thank you to Carla for giving us some of her time today, and I'll see you next time.